Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
My name is Gracie. Our daughter's name is Margaret, although she prefers Margot. She's definitely her daddy's daughter. We don't get along very well. I think it's because she and I are both schemers. Throughout our marriage, I cheated on my husband from time to time. I just can't help it. I have a sex addiction, and Jack isn't up to my level in the bedroom. Anyway, that's not why I married him. I married him because he was easy to control and because he knew how to make good money. Maybe that sounds cold to you, but then you probably live in a trailer and drive a Ford. I drive a Mercedes S-Series and live in a mansion. If you've decided to settle down or haven't prepared for the future, don't judge me. Jack never cheated on me. He used to be like an adorable puppy who followed me everywhere. I taught him everything in the bedroom. Luckily, he believed my claim that I learned it all from the internet. I'm not saying he's up to my level in bed, but he's pretty darn close now, thanks to my training. Perhaps this is why I am so sad about our possible divorce. You see, everyone gets caught at some point. In my case, while I was having sex with a lustful citizen of the Dominican Republic, my daughter skipped school and filmed my sex in high definition on the camera of the phone I bought her. God, what a monster I raised. I should have had an abortion, but she was the one who tied Jack to me when we were younger and doubtful decisions. Hindsight never helps when you need it. When I got home that day, I saw her grin at me and run upstairs. That's when. Walked into the living room and walked straight into a nightmare. My most recent sex scene was shown on TV. Jack sat in front of him. With tears and a high-pitched sound coming from his chest, my husband slowly self-destructed before my eyes. I froze. My mind told me to run and grab the cord from the socket, but my body was in shock. We both watched as I had hot sex with a young student. In an ideal world, even at this stage, my husband would be understanding and we might come to an understanding, but it wasn't to be. He finally jumped up and threw the remote at our very expensive UHD flat-screen TV. His head turned like a tower to face me, his eyes met mine, and all I saw was blind rage or hatred. I can't say exactly what it is. Jack, I can explain. It was an accident or God's providence, right? I thought I knew about the difficulties between men and women, how it rarely works out, and yet I kept trying like a fool. His hands clenched and unclenched, his breathing was ragged. For the first time since I met him, I truly felt afraid that he might hurt me. Strangely, it sounded like he wasn't surprised by my affair, but I didn't have time to think about it. Instead, he ran into the garage and I heard his truck start, an old Ford that he kept running. He always joked that it gave him farm credit when he went out and tended to his animal patients. Even after he stopped being a veterinarian, he kept that stupid pickup truck. Immediately after that, I heard the automatic garage door start to open, and before I could run into the driveway, he pulled out into the street. Please God, let him buckle up. I heard my monster, my offspring, also standing on the staircase and looking out the panoramic window. What the hell do you care? You did this to him. I shouted. What do you mean I did this to him, my hopefully soon-to-be ex-mother? I didn't have sex with a guy while I was married to a guy young enough to be my boyfriend. You were so monumentally naive. What an evil monster I raised. I needed her to get out of here. I started making a plan to save my life, and the first step was to send the prude to her grandparents. After, of course, I confiscated her phone and destroyed the DVD she burned so her dad could watch it. You were going to visit your grandparents. I would advise not to mention any of this to them. You no longer have any proof, and I can certainly make your life extremely difficult while you live under this roof. You're crazy if you think I won't be able to control your father once he calms down. So don't make a kid of me. At the end, I screamed. I thought that she ran upstairs in fear, but then I did not yet know about cloud computers. A day passed, my daughter was safely, or so I thought, hidden where she could no longer harm me. My husband finally returned home. His eyes were red and he looked like he had not slept. I rubbed my eyes furiously when I heard him arrive. Without changing my clothes, when he entered the living room, I tried to appear in terrible shape. I exhaled carefully in the voice of a little girl, please forgive me. I must have had a nervous breakdown. I sniff. I don't know what came over me to allow this to happen. His gaze was cold even despite the pain. It was full of some incomprehensible emotions. I slowly stood up and hugged him, but noticed that he did not return my gesture. He just stood there like a fence post or a tree, unyielding. I failed you, us, and our daughter. I can't undo what I did. I love you and I won't fight if you want to leave me. I took a calculated risk. It could have gone either way, but I think the odds were definitely in my favor. Finally, he spoke, would you please stop rubbing yourself against me? I can't concentrate when you do that. I'm tired and I need more time to think without your influence. I'm going to sleep in the bedroom for a while with the door locked, so you need to take everything you need from there and go to the spare bedroom. It's good that he didn't fall for the divorce gambit. I ran upstairs and grabbed a few things from the closet and master bathroom, then took them to the spare bedroom down the hall. When I was returning, the lock on the door clicked. I knocked lightly on the door. Jack, can we at least talk soon? We can talk in the morning. Now came the hardest part. I needed to look even worse, so I avoided drinking water or eating. I ruffled my hair even more and stuck my finger down my throat to vomit some liquid on my sundress. Some carefully applied snot also completed the look. In addition, I placed a glass of vodka next to me and applied a little Vaseline to the back of my hand. I forced myself to stay awake the rest of the day and night to increase the appearance of fatigue. When Jack came down the next morning, I quickly rubbed Vaseline on my teeth to keep my lips open in the semblance of a smile. I also splashed a couple of drops of the remaining vodka in my eyes to induce redness and tears. It hurt like hell, but it was necessary. I saw that he looked much better, although he was devastated. Even better was the obvious concern on his face about my appearance. He still loved me. I had a chance. Oh my God, Grace, you look terrible. Let me get you to bed. He picked me up and carried me to the master bedroom. I sobbed on his shoulder as he carried me into the room and laid me down. It got even better when he lay down next to me and started talking. You hurt me, Grace. You really shook the pillars of heaven, but I don't want you to hurt yourself. Mom called and said they were taking care of Margot, so we need to talk. He looked confused but continued. I thought about it very hard. I mean harder than I've ever thought about in my life. I think I might be willing to give you another chance, but you need some counseling about your issues. There is something else. Whatever, my love, I swear, I quieted. He almost shouted. I think he was more outraged than he seemed. There's one more thing, Grace. You probably won't like it, but I need you to feel the soul-crushing pain you put me through. I can't tell you when this will happen, but sometime in the future, I'm going to sleep with another woman and film it. If you want us to continue, you'll have to watch me have sex with someone else. Then we'll be even. I was truly shocked. I created a monster out of my loving husband, and he was determined to disfigure me. The mere thought of him doing to another woman what I had done to my lovers was almost unbearable, but I needed him. I had to go through this to get my life back to where it was. After I get my revenge at some point in the future, I will do the same. In the meantime, assuming we get intimate again, I'll put on a condom. Given my trust issues, I can't risk having another child, so you can try to tie me to you even more. I understand, Jack, my love. I don't want to feel the same pain, but I will do this to keep you. I will go through anything for this. I thought it was a little stupid, but you have to do what you have to do. Over the next few months, we settled into a challenging routine. My demon child came back into the house, and she clearly couldn't understand why we didn't get a divorce. I just grinned at her and reminded her that I run this family. After that, she no longer directly challenged me. Counseling was also easy. I just blamed my addiction to sex. The doctor ate it up and burped it up for my hubby like he was a baby. Agree, the problem was, as I mentioned earlier, my husband was trying his best to have sex with me in a stupid way. He took control of the bedroom right out of my hands. Every time he took me, I wondered if he had learned his new passionate techniques from another woman. When we didn't have sex because he claimed he was sick or tired, I worried. Was it possible that tomorrow I would see him making out with a young girl, possibly falling in love with her? The cumulative effect was devastating. As the year progressed, I lost all my self-confidence. I couldn't risk having an outside affair become known to my husband, so I relied solely on him. I was sad when he didn't pay attention to me. I lost weight, although I wasn't fat to begin with. Even my hair lost its shine and became brittle. People at work told me that I looked like I had suffered a shock and had aged 10 years. I couldn't sleep, my joints hurt. Maybe I was aging prematurely. The worst part is that I started to obsess over my husband and, dare I say it, really love him. Everything was in his hands. Every day, I expected my world to be taken from me, and like some evil priest in a movie, my Jack to giggle happily and reach into my chest to rip out my beating heart. My plan was terrible. Who would have thought that the main intriguer would fall into a trap that she herself set? Finally, almost a year later, I can't take it anymore. I decided to pull the plug and see what happened. I sent my daughter back to her grandparents and decided to sort things out with my loving husband. He needed to take action or get off the pot, or I was leaving, even though I really love him. For the first time, I can't suffer anymore. Jack, I can't stand it anymore. I need you to hurry up and find this other woman, have sex with her, and let me watch the tape so we can get through this." He just looked at me. I felt goosebumps crawl across my body as I realized that this look was the same as the one he gave me a year ago, the look of a bug collector when he sees a particularly interesting bug he wants to collect. Or perhaps the feverish look of a young sociopath burning ants with a magnifying glass. What have I done with my actions? "Do you really think I can stoop to your level, Gracie?" he said in a cold voice. I noticed that he used my full name, which he never did, as he preferred the nickname Grace. "I never intended to do what I told you. All I've done this year is push you. I wanted you to finally love me so that when you could no longer bear the worries and doubts, you would give me an ultimatum." He stood up and walked into his office. I heard the key turn in the lock, and he came back with a large envelope. "You can sign it or not, I don't care. We've come full circle, you and me. I don't care one iota about you anymore, and you seem to love me. I wouldn't care while you have a hard time imagining me sleeping with some woman out of revenge. You see now, you feel what I felt before. You know what it's like to wonder every day if the one you love is going to give up that love and trust for just sex." A year ago, I had no intention of deciding anything. I just wanted to hurt you as much as possible without putting you through physical torture. I looked at the papers he handed me, divorce papers signed and dated just under a year ago. My tears blurred the details, but at the moment, they didn't really matter. There was one chance, Gracie. If during this time you had admitted everything, stopped trying to pass it off as some kind of mental problem, and actually apologized, we could have made peace. But you didn't. You were dodging and trying to get out just as I suspected. I'm not stupid, Gracie. I have had my suspicions for a long time, and I am quite sure that this student was not your first outsider. I let it go because of our daughter and because I loved you then. Anyway, we're done. Sign the papers if you want, but either way, take your things and leave. Margot will stay with me, she's old enough to choose. That means I'll run the house until she finishes school. You make more money than me, so good luck getting alimony. Leave. Margot will be home soon, and I don't want you here." I was Frankenstein looking at what I had created. I doubted that I would die of pneumonia anytime soon, but inside I was as dead as the monster creator Mary Shelley planted. I even had to wonder if his suspicions and plans began around the time he decided to become a truck driver. This certainly changed the balance of money earned between us and reduced my chances of using alimony as a weapon to delay the divorce. He was also right that my daughter was old enough to determine where she would live for custody purposes. In truth, the agreement was more than fair since he was making less money and would likely become the custodian. I could be forced to pay him child support. I could sue the whole thing, tie it up for months or years, but the enormous economic cost of having a lawyer work for so long makes it foolhardy. Since I had few options, I reluctantly signed the papers there and then packing a few things before leaving. I can just have the movers pick up the rest. After all, things are just property. What I really want, I no longer have. This should have been the end of my sad story, but my daughter, making it clear that she was not afraid of me and that she never wanted to see me again, uploaded my shameful actions from the cloud to the email website. The fallout from my amateur videos was swift, faster than the lawsuit that resulted in them being removed. I lost my job as a veterinarian and was forced to look for a job in another state where I could explain my sudden layoff. Someday, I am sure I will overcome the pain, the hellish feeling as if I was being cut into pieces. I'm still attractive enough that even if I don't forget Jack, I could replace him. I'm just not sure what benefit it could have. I've been in a marriage before that I entered into not fully loving my spouse, and look where it got me. I'm certainly not as strong as Jack. Jack gave me a whole year to act honestly and correctly, and then perhaps he would accept me again. I couldn't do it. As for my current love life, I have casual relationships, but I am emotionally cold and dead inside. I still love the monsters I created. Thank you for listening to this story. Now here is another exciting story for you to read. Dave and Rebecca Brown, a couple married for 12 years, spent an hour and a half in their first court-ordered three-way consultation. Dave was only present because of his lawyer's insistence. Postnuptial agreements were a relatively new phenomenon in the legal system, and Dave's lawyer wanted to make sure all the I's were dotted and crossed. The previous 90 minutes had been spent talking between the consultant and Rebecca while Dave sat with his lips pursed, holding a notepad and pen. From time to time, he wrote something down in a notebook. Rebecca's pleas touched the heart of seasoned counselor Jenny, who was also impressed by the way Rebecca accepted all the blame, allaying any fears Dave had that her infidelity meant he had failed her in some way. Rebecca also avoided many of the excuses that people in her situation inevitably come up with. Jenny was glad that Rebecca followed this approach since it was Jenny who had recommended this approach when they met for a solo session 3 days before. Rebecca finally fell silent, and the only sounds in the room were the faint ticking of the analog clock on the wall to their side and the scratching of Dave taking notes on a notepad on his knee. Jenny let the silence linger. Experience had taught her that most people like to fill the gaps in uncomfortable situations. 1 minute, 2. Jenny looked at Rebecca, who opened her mouth as if to say something. Jenny shook her head slightly. Rebecca heeded the subtle sign and closed her mouth. Jenny decided to give Dave 1 more minute. If he remained silent, Jenny was going to suggest that Dave seriously think about what his sincerely repentant wife was going through and educate him on general statistics. Far from once a cheater, always a cheater, those who were caught cheating and witnessed the devastation it caused to those they cared about often became incredibly loyal. She waited. Dave stirred, a slight smile playing on his face. Okay, Jenny thought, and the corners of her mouth lifted into a half-smile. It was usually better if she could get the injured party to voluntarily contribute rather than force them to do so. Well done, Rebecca. I'll give you 9 out of 10 for this. Jenny's smile disappeared. She was embarrassed, and judging by the look on Rebecca's face, she was embarrassed too. Jenny came to her senses first. So, Mr. Brown, there's no need to be rude. Your wife has exposed her innermost parts here. As you know, I met with her privately earlier this week, and she is truly humiliated that you caught her doing this and very devastated by the pain she caused you. As she said today, her colleague was an experienced Lothario, and she simply wasn't strong enough to resist his advances. I can assure you that with both of your blessings, if you forgive her, I can work with her to give her the strength and knowledge enough to ensure that this never happens again. Dave just sighed. They say that you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. I don't take the hint, Mr. Brown. Are you saying that your wife can't learn to protect herself and therefore your feelings in the future? No, not at all, Miss Parkinson. I meant, how long did you study at university? For years, actually. 6, I finished my master's degree. 6 years? Yes, and you've obviously learned everything, damn it. Offended, Jenny straightened up. Excuse me, Mr. Brown. That was rude and completely inappropriate. Do you think so? Anticipating further protests, Dave pulled an electronic device from his pocket and pressed a button. Rebecca's voice came from the device, begging for forgiveness. She swore it was a one-time mistake and that he, Dave, could take it to the bank. They listened as she admitted how much she had hurt him and how hurt she was that she had caused him so much pain. Then Jenny's indignant voice interrupted loudly. Do you understand how unpleasant and inappropriate it is to record our session? Not only is it unpleasant, but I believe that it is completely illegal in the state to record someone without their approval and consent, and I certainly do not intend to agree with that. It's okay because Margaret agreed. Jenny was too angry and embarrassed to notice that Rebecca had just lowered her chin to her chest and was successfully imitating a beetroot. Jenny couldn't remember when she had been more offended. Who the hell is Margaret? She was our consultant 2 years ago when I last caught Rebecca cheating. It was recorded then. My wife is convincing, isn't she? She fooled me then, that's for sure. Rebecca continued to look at the floor at her feet. Dave watched with satisfaction as he and Jenny engaged in a silent competition to see who could blush the brightest. Annoyed, Jenny reflected on how thoroughly she had been fooled by the experienced cheater. Perhaps her embarrassment was assuaged by the realization that the reason Rebecca was such a convincing liar was that the first person she convinced was Rebecca herself. Dave took the embarrassed silence of both women as an opportunity to end this farce. Just so there is no doubt, Rebecca, I will fully honor the terms of the marriage agreement you signed 2 years ago. This means that you leave my house with only your personal belongings while leaving behind all the jewelry that I bought you, including the 2 rings that you are wearing now. Dave paused, allowing himself to replay his previous sentence in his head with satisfaction. In a way, I suppose I should thank you. If I had divorced your ass 2 years ago, the courts would have given you half of everything. And now you won't get anything, and the only cost was that I had to swallow my pride for a while. Don't worry, you didn't hurt me too much this time. Despite what a good counselor says, deep down, I think I knew you would cheat again, and that's why I never became truly emotionally invested in our relationship again. Rebecca was silent, staring at the floor. The depth of the punishment and loss still hadn't sunk into her. Jenny, embarrassed by her naivety, shuddered at the cold dispassion with which Dave behaved. Obviously, he was as emotionally unperturbed as he claimed, or maybe he was an even better actor than his wife. Neither woman said a word, and the offended husband continued, "Give me 24 hours and I'll put your stuff in a box. I don't know where you'll go or what you'll do, but honestly, I don't care. The locks will be changed in an hour, so please don't embarrass us both by knocking on the door. If you try to mobilize your family and our friends against me, the video clips I have of you and your lover will mysteriously end up in everyone you know, and I do mean everyone. I'm sure at least some of them won't be so understanding when they hear you squealing as Clive pinned your ass on our damn marital bed." Dave paused to stop the rapid rise of his violent temper. After a dozen deep breaths, he regained full control. "Once the divorce is final, we can talk about your visit to Alice. Sign the divorce this week and I'll be generous with the visit. Resist and you'll only be able to kiss her goodbye." Jenny perked up her ears at these words. Rebecca's head jerked up, her eyes flashing with a mixture of fear and anger. Neither reaction escaped Jenny. Neither in their solo session nor in this joint session did Rebecca mention her daughter. But at the time, she seemed like a typical 21st century narcissist, as self-centered as a spinning top, so focused on what she could lose that everything and anything else faded into the background. Jenny looked back and saw the pain on Rebecca's face as she finally found the words. But you can't take my little girl away from me. She needs me. I can't live without her." The unbearable pain that Rebecca felt from the words of her soon-to-be ex-husband was written on her distorted features. Jenny thought, if only these idiots had thought about all the consequences of their actions before committing their various crimes, I would be out of a job. She reached out and placed her hand on Rebecca's, hoping to keep her from completely breaking down. Having shown himself to be an emotional dead fish in the eyes of the consultant, Dave spoke completely calmly. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you were, quote-unquote, seduced by an expert. All this is clearly stated in the contract. It says if you screw up again, you'll lose everything, including custody of Alice." "But she needs me, Rebecca. She's 13 years old. I will do everything just as well as you. In any case, this is not the place to air our dirty laundry. You cheated, I took you back. You signed a contract after the wedding and promised never to stray again. I suspected something was wrong, conducted an investigation, and again caught you playing the fool. Don't commit a crime if you can't handle the consequences, as isn't that what they say?" Dave stood up and looked down at his soon-to-be ex-wife, who by this point was kneeling on the floor, her hands clasped in supplication, tears in her eyes. Streaming down her face, the anguished expression on her face showed everyone in the room that, perhaps for the first time in this whole sordid affair, she actually felt remorse. The consequences of her impulsive actions were finally becoming clear. Gathering her last strength, Rebecca made a short dash. "You won't take my Alice. I will fight you every step of the way." The consultant stood as a helpless witness to the grin that appeared on Dave's face. "Please do. My lawyer told me that this was an ironclad agreement and that it would give me the excuse I needed to release my little videos. Try to show yourself in public after they come out, Rebecca." With these words, the offended husband left the room. Jenny looked at the devastated woman inside. She better start now if she wants to prevent a complete mental collapse, especially if the aforementioned contract is upheld in her husband's favor. After the wedding, having your daughter taken away from you must be every mother's nightmare. She leaned towards the sobbing woman. Dave Brown sat in his car until the adrenaline wore off and his breathing returned to normal. Then he drove home through the supermarket and liquor store, buying a bottle of bourbon for himself and a nice piece of fish for his and Alice's dinner. Salmon was her favorite. Tonight was the beginning of a new stage in their life together. What he did tonight was important. He paused with his hand on the front doorknob, determined to stick to his normal routine as best he could for Alice's sake. Pushing open the door, Dave Brown spoke in a loud voice, well aware of the growing deterioration of Alice's hearing. "Alice, walkie-talkie." An elderly terrier dog jumped out of its basket, wagging its tail so hard that its back paws skidded on the floorboards, coming to greet its owner. Thank you for listening to this story. Now here is another exciting story for you to read. 44-year-old Grady Gallup wearily walked up the cracked concrete steps of his home. Another week of hell at a job he hated was finally over. It was a pleasant late spring Friday evening in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Alamogordo is a small town with a population of about 10,000 people. Grady was a military contractor at nearby Holloman Air Force Base. Alamogordo's claim to fame is that it was ground zero for the end of the world. Now, only Grady and his wife, Magdalena, were there. All three children grew up and left their small town as quickly as they could. As soon as he crossed the threshold of his house, an atomic bomb exploded in his head, shaking him to the core. Oh my God, yes. Take me deeper. I need to feel it. Oh, that's it, I'm done, she practically growled. Whatever it was, he had never heard Maggie scream like that before. Grady looked at his watch, an old military habit. Hell, it was 6:30. He didn't even get home early and she was having sex with someone upstairs. He froze in place. How the hell am I supposed to behave? For some reason, shouting, "Honey, I'm home," seemed out of place. Maybe she's playing with a giant vibrator. That's it. That's what I have to see. Grady was shocked by the sight of his lover. He was like a child, probably younger than their eldest, in a sweaty, naked embrace after intercourse on their bed. Maggie looked at her watch. Oh, darling, you need to get out of here right now. I lost track of time and hubby will be home any minute now. Go, it's too late, I'm already home. Grady was unfazed. Two things happened immediately. Maggie fainted and her lover began to cry. What the? You're man enough to have sex with someone else's wife in the family bed and when you get caught, you cry. Today's young generation is kind of a waste of time. Just leave, son. Now wait, how old are you anyway? 19, sir? Grady just shook his head and sighed. In any case, thank God, at least this is the case. He pointed to the door and the guy grabbed his clothes and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Grady went downstairs, grabbed a beer, and sipped it slowly at the kitchen table, waiting for his wife to come to her senses. 10 minutes later, his wife, wearing only a robe, sat down next to him. She gently extended her hand. Grady, honey, I'm sorry you saw that, but you don't regret him. Why, Maggie? Listen, honey, it doesn't mean anything, baby. All he has is a cigar a few inches longer than yours, and he can smoke it for hours. It's just a purely physical thing, and we only do it once a week. He gets me where you can't. You understand, right? I love you to death, honey. Our family is the most important thing to me forever. If you could grow your cigar longer, I wouldn't need it at all. You understand. Grady stared at Maggie blankly. It made her nervous. Say something, baby. Actually, Maggie, I really understand. I'm going to sleep in Anthony's old room. Good night, and Grady went upstairs without looking at Maggie. Maggie left early Saturday morning for her usual golf date with the ladies, but before leaving, she thoroughly cleaned the master bedroom. She didn't want to rub it in Grady's face. Returning home, she put her clubs in the hallway closet and was about to call Grady when she heard strange noises coming from upstairs. Oh yeah, Grady, baby, take me harder. Oh my God, this feels so good. When Maggie looked into their bedroom, her husband was there, having sex with a petite blonde who was barely 20 years old. What the? Grady. Without stopping, Grady looked up. Oh, hi, honey. Look, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, if you could make your vagina smaller, I wouldn't need it at all. You understand me, right? Subscribe to our channel so that your second half doesn't cheat on you.